Donald Trump is stepping up the threats of tyranny by touting on Twitter the, quote, absolute right to pardon himself. And yesterday I told you about this completely tyrannical letter that Donald Trump's attorney sent to Robert Mueller, basically claiming that no matter what Trump does, you can't touch the guy. And their interpretation is that whether the president exchanges cash for pardons or obstructs justice, or even, according to his lawyer Rudy Giuliani, shoots former FBI director James Comey dead in the Oval Office, that the law cannot touch him unless he is impeached. Now, many legal scholars disagree with that. And I also pointed out yesterday that for decades, the right has been fear-mongering around tyranny, whether it's needing guns to protect ourselves from a tyrannical government or political correctness being a form of tyranny, but that actually handguns won't really help us stop the threat of tyranny that we're facing, which in this case is absolutely belligerent claims of absolute presidential power, up to and including the murder of American citizens. We discussed all of that yesterday, okay? Today, I want to focus on what Donald Trump said on Twitter, which is about pardoning himself, and it's another step in the direction of tyranny. Donald Trump said on Twitter yesterday, quote, "As has been stated by numerous legal scholars, I have the absolute right to pardon myself. But why would I do that when I have done nothing wrong? In the meantime, the never-ending witch hunt led by 13 very angry and conflicted Democrats and others continues into the midterms." And here's Trump's latest lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, saying, yeah, the president could pardon himself, but don't worry, he has no plan to do that.
Letter also cites the president's pardon power. Do you and the president's attorneys believe the president has the power to pardon himself?
He's not, but he probably does. I mean, he has no intention of pardoning himself, but he probably does. It doesn't say he can't. I mean, that's another really interesting constitutional argument. Can the president pardon himself?
You think it's an open question?
I used to run the pardon attorney. It would be an open question. I think it would probably get answered by, gosh, that's what the Constitution says, and if you want to change it, change it. But, yeah.
A lot of focus on the president.
I think the political ramifications of that would be tough. Pardoning other people is one thing. Pardoning yourself is another. Other presidents have pardoned people in circumstances like this, both in their administration and sometimes the next president, even of a different party, will come along and pardon.
A lot of focus on...
Right. So to be clear, no president has ever pardoned himself. There does exist a memo from the Justice Department in 1974, which was written days before Richard Nixon resigned. And it says that the president cannot pardon themselves because, quote, no one may be a judge in his own case. But let's play it to its endpoint, right? If Trump pardoned himself, hypothetically, it would immediately trigger a court challenge, which would be appealed to the nation's top court, the Supreme Court, which would very likely hear the case. And this means that the decision as to whether Donald Trump could pardon himself might come down to Neil Gorsuch, the guy that Donald Trump put on the Supreme Court. And this is why elections matter. This is why when some on the left say Hillary, Trump, whatever, it's all the same, right? It's not, because now Neil Gorsuch is on the Supreme Court for life. And if and when this comes up, Trump has what will very likely be a friendly vote on that Supreme Court. This is a sort of Richard Nixon moment, right? It's an if the president does it, it's not illegal. It's another flavor of that. Didn't work out super well for Richard Nixon, but it is a strategy. And the Nixon difference, in my view, is that there was no Fox News at the time. There was no propaganda news echo chamber defending Nixon, no matter what he did at the time, and making him out to be the victim in the entire Watergate scandal. And that could actually be a difference maker in the end. And what's missing from this conversation is that it's absurd that there's this much discussion about a president of the United States talking about pardoning themselves and forcing the investigation into possible wrongdoing by him to be closed. That's not normal. Normally, presidents don't regularly, over a period of many months, talk about pardoning themselves or other people. And the goalposts have been hugely moved here.
Yeah, and one would hope that if Trump did decide to pardon himself, and probably for some serious crimes, he would get impeached by Congress before the courts would be able to decide on whether or not that's legal. Although, given that we currently have a Republican Congress and who knows what will happen in the next midterms, maybe that wouldn't happen.
Well, the timing of that is confusing because if it's crimes related to his duties as president, he actually can't be charged. It's almost impossible to charge them, and certainly impeachment would have to happen first. If we're talking about a criminal crime, something unrelated to being president, like murdering James Comey, for example, then according to legal scholars, you would not first have to impeachment. But even, I mean, we're getting very, very
too, though,
hypothetical.
Whether the president can be indicted, yeah.
Yeah, number of open questions. And the big picture is that the goalposts have moved really bigly in the last 18 months, right? There's nothing to look into because no one did anything, to we did some stuff, but it was all legal, to we may have done some illegal stuff, but the investigation is a witch hunt based on illegal leaks, to even if I did it, you can't convict me anyway, to I'm the president because I'm the president, to even if you did convict me, I would pardon myself. And nearly 40% of the country is watching this shameful disaster and still supports the guy. That's really, when we're talking about indictments, the biggest indictment is on the American people that continue to say, yes, I approve of the job that the President of the United States is doing. The video you just watched was made possible by support from you. Please go to patreon.com/David Pakman Show. You can make a pledge of as little as $1 per month. And every dollar helps to support the work that we're doing, particularly in light of the YouTube ad boycott, which has been really bad.